Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the South Derbyshire series, a district of Derbyshire which stretches from Leicestershire to Staffordshire, containing 50 civil parishes. Here's one of them for you. Welcome back to South Derbyshire again, people, to another very pretty village. To be fair, it's Derbyshire, it's pretty by default, I suppose. This is a very small place, but it's loaded with awesome features. There's one in particular which I know everyone is going to love. It's literally just a few steps down there along the main street. So without further ado, let's go and check it out. This is the parish of Smisby. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Smisby, Smith Farm. I think as far as South Derbyshire goes, I may have found the best yet. Welcome to Smisby, which literally means Smith Farm. Good name, good name. This one lies on the Leicestershire border within touching distance of Ashby-de-la-Zouch. The village, including some outlying farms and houses, has a population of just over 200. Within 200 metres of the village is a spot where a jousting tournament was held, an event described by Sir Walter Scott in his novel Ivanhoe. Notable past residents have included Hannah Bailey, who became a missionary to the New Zealand Māori, and the clockmaker Reuben Bosworth. Even though there are some more far-flung landmarks, most of Smisby is clustered around a central loop formed by Main Street and Chapel Street. For such a small village, it has a lot. Standing tall at the western end of the place is St James's Church, on the highest ground the village has. Halfway up Main Street is the gorgeous village hall, and close by is the Smisby Arms, the local pub. Then there's the brick-built Smisby Lockup, perhaps the finest example of its type in the country. There was even a windmill too at one time. On the edge of it all is an Arboretum, and to the north are the Colk Abbey racing stables. So, without further ado, there seems to be plenty to look at here. Let's get stuck in. Walk time! We start on Main Street at its southeastern corner where the road bends slightly towards the B5006. That's the Derby Road, which bypasses Smisby and runs to Ticknall. Even though we're only a stone's throw away from the Leicestershire border, as you can see, this is a classic South Derbyshire village, and isn't it absolutely gorgeous? Smisby was settled in Saxon times. Its name derives from its Old Norse name of Smidesby, which translates into Smith's Farm. In Anglo-Saxon form, the Smis would have been Smeth or Smed. The village was referred to as Smidesby in the Domesday Book. Our first landmark comes in the form of a phone box, which can be found inside the grounds of the village hall. This has an interesting history. It stands on a site originally occupied by a 17th century farmhouse, which later became Smisby's first school, financed by Sir George Crewe. When a new school was built over the road in 1905, it became a parish room. Now only part of the original building remains, but it was extended in 1954, and in 2010 it morphed into the hall you see here today. All of that history can be found on this excellent little information board, which is right in front of it. On the other side there was once a well. Named Townwell, the locals used it until 1955 when mains water finally came to the village. Also on the other side is Smisby's second school, the one built in 1905. This is no longer a school, but it's still used as a day nursery. It's also the base of Smisbus, which is for after-school and holiday clubs. It operates from a purpose-built building at the back of the nursery that was completed in 2015 after taking 18 weeks to build. We continue to the west, where next we'll come to the much-loved Smisby Arms. It's a pub and restaurant which is over 350 years old. The Smisby Arms used to be called the Nelson years ago. The other pub in the parish is the Tap House, which is right at the end of Anwell Lane. It was formerly known as the Anwell Inn, Mother Hubbard's and the Malt Shovel. There was a third pub too called the Three Tons. It was on Main Street too, but it's now a private dwelling. And speaking of private dwellings, here's a couple of big ones for you just after the pub. The one behind the wall and the trees is Rotherwood House, and next door is the early 18th century Pitts Farmhouse. This is one of the 9 listed buildings across Smisby Parish. Now we come to Smisby's most iconic structure, the Lockup. Also known as a jug or a roundhouse, this early 18th century brick building was used to lock up drunks, minor lawbreakers and other criminals who were waiting escort to Derby for trial. It's octagonal in shape and has a tiled spire roof and a heavy studded door. It's considered one of the best remaining examples of a roundhouse style lockup anywhere in the country, and there's only 200 of them left. There are other examples in nearby villages, including Ticknall and Alton, and of course the one we met in Breedon-on-the-Hill. Yeah, we don't see very many of those village lockups, but that one unfortunately is not open. You might remember the one in Breedon-on-the-Hill, which is not too far away from here. That one's actually open all the time. You can go in and have a look, but that one was actually locked. I hope there's no one locked in there. I will say that much. So we're now on the village green, and there's a few things here. We've got church obviously to have a look at in a second. We've also got the war memorial right there. There seems to be a few other bits around as well. So let's continue this walk. I'm absolutely loving this village. Smisby's War Memorial is a simple Latin cross made of marble which was erected in 1920. It's for World War I only and displays the names of the 4 men from the village who never returned from conflict. The green is undoubtedly Smisby's focal point. It's a junction between the main roads of the village and it's sited on gently sloping land towards the church, which we'll explore shortly. If you were to continue along Anwell Lane at this point instead, you'd be heading for the site of Smisby's former windmill. Named Windmill and now demolished, only a few foundation fragments remain. The church is dedicated to St James. Although it looks tall and imposing, it's relatively small and only looks big because it's on a hill. It has a nave, a chancel, a south porch and a tower which contains 2 17th century bells. It was originally a chapel of ease to St Wistons in Repton and was first mentioned in a charter dated 1271. Internally, the chancel is panelled with oak in linen fold pattern that was formerly in Ashby Castle and has monuments to Henry Kendall and his wife dated 1627. Outside, these graves caught my eye. They all belong to members of the Woodward family. Exiting the churchyard, next is Chapel Street. There used to be a pinfold at this corner, the site of which is now occupied by a beautiful copper beech tree. Chapel Street is wholly residential, and for me its standout property was this, the blue cottage, which provided a bit of vibrant colour. Chapel Street is of course named though thanks to this, and much like Blue Cottage, it definitely stands out too. Once a Wesleyan Methodist building, this was built in 1845 on the site of an old barn and stockyard. A dwindling congregation forced it to close some years ago, and it's now a private house. Finally, we have the playing field, which is tucked away in a corner off the end of Chapel Street. You'd be forgiven for thinking that a village this small isn't able to sustain one, given previous examples, but this has a huge playground and a football pitch, and easily enough green space for everyone's needs. In conclusion, Smisby holds its own quite well, doesn't it? Although it doesn't take half a day to fully explore, it's a village that still has enough to interest you, both modern and historic. And on the historic connection theme, there is one which Smisby is rather proud of. Let's find out some more. When the noble patron of the arts, Sir George Beaumont, was entertaining his friend Sir Walter Scott at nearby Colalton Hall in the summer of 1819, they visited Smisby. At that time, the village was described in a guidebook as an old-fashioned English hamlet. It still is today, you have to say. They climbed a watchtower belonging to Smisby Manor House, which still stands off Anwell Lane, and looks southwards across a level plateau to the keep of Ashby Castle, 2 miles away. Much nearer to them, and mainly in Smisby Parish, was a field, the traditional scene of jousting tournaments in medieval times. Sir Walter Scott made a mental note of it and included it in his novel Ivanhoe. If you read the book, you'll find it in chapter 7. The novel was published in 1819, but it wasn't until much later in the 19th century when Ashby began to make use of its connection to Ivanhoe. As for the watchtower, that's gone now, and on its site is a house called the Poplars. The tournament field is indicated on OS maps, usually in italic script. Southeast of the village is the Bluebell Arboretum and Nursery, which is a popular little tourist attraction. The business began in 1979. Despite the name, this has nothing to do with bluebells. Its name stems from its original location, when it was just a nursery next to the Bluebell Inn pub in Blackfordby, with which it shared a car park. Now much bigger, this contains one of the finest collections of unusual trees and shrubs in Derbyshire. Bluebell is a Royal Horticultural Society partner garden, covering an area of 9 acres. The Arboretum has become a beautiful woodland walk with rare plant treasures on display to entice the real enthusiasts. Most of the plants on display are sold as young specimens in the adjoining nursery. There is a fee to enter. For adults it's £6. Children under 18 go free, as do members of the RHS. Now we come to Forties Lane, a narrow road that leads north from the Green. Its curious name is all down to the land surrounding it. It once led to 40 acres of land which was designed for the locals to graze animals upon. Part of the road is sunken, set as it is within a cutting. The road is ancient and would have once been the main route between Ashby and Ticknall. It leads to Heath Lane, and this is the location of Cork Abbey Racing Stables. It's an equestrian centre which has recently undergone a big refurbishment. It's not uncommon to see horses on these roads. In fact, I even encountered one myself on the way up Forties Lane. There will be more on Cork Abbey, which is literally right next door to Smisby, in a future episode. For now though, it's time to make our way out of the parish and on to the next one. I'm starting to fall in love a little bit with this part of the East Midlands, it has to be said. See you all next time. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.